Change your opinions, and growing as a person is part of getting older, and people will influence that. It seems the case of iDubbbz, he let his wife completely change everything about him. It's sad. There might be something to that. I just don't know. I'm not going to be out here claiming to know what's going on in iDubbbz's brain. I'm just out here eating bugs, as I've been told by the World Health Organization. I'm doing what I'm told, you know? I have no will, and I'm okay with that, and I'm happy. But there might be some truth to the idea that iDubbbz is over-influenced by his wife. I just literally don't know. You know what I mean? I believe him. I actually kind of do believe him that he's not bothered by her having an OnlyFans. Like, people that I know are fazed by different things, dog. I'm not sure. Put some wrinkles in my brain. Okay. So, in the vein of talking about iDubbbz, our boy, do you guys want to know the true fucking god of drama, the true king of the YouTube drama scene, the originator of propaganda? I learned this recently, and I thought it was fascinating. How much do you guys know about Roman history? Okay? A lot of right-wingers that I've seen online will attribute, this is maybe a caricaturization, but they'll like attribute the fall of the Roman Empire to like women and gays, right? This is like a trope. Like basically, you know, just saying like gay degeneracy and like too many women being involved and shit, all this bullshit, like pleasure, all this shit contribute, you know, is part of the reason, and if not the reason, why the Roman Empire fell. And so I was like, okay, I'll learn about the Roman Empire, whatever. When guys say that, let's be frank, they don't know shit about the Roman Empire most of the time. Okay, if a guy says that, just ask him, yo, can you name 3 Roman emperors? Because if they say Julius Caesar, then it's very clear that they don't know shit. Julius Caesar was not a Roman emperor, okay? Julius Caesar, everybody knows this name, was the dictator for life of Rome, okay? Let's look him up. Everybody has heard about how Julius Caesar died, right? He basically announced himself as being dictator for life. So yeah, he said he was going to be dictator for life, and just so happened that the Senate, after a little bit of him ruling, they weren't really a fan of him being dictator for life, so they fucking stabbed him in the back. Et tu, Brute? His boy Brutus fucking also stabbed him in the back, right? The guy that he thought he could trust. So Caesar died. The Roman Empire did not exist when Caesar died. Did you know that? It did not exist yet. Rome existed, I guess, but the Roman Empire did not exist. Now, once Caesar died, the guy who fucking announced himself as emperor for life, he basically, everyone was like, holy fuck, okay, that guy's dead. Jesus Christ. Now, who is going to be the next leader, right? So they were looking around. It was basically run by, the senators for a while. Basically emerges Mark Antony, right? Who's like a statesman. He's a very esteemed military general, all this shit. And so it seems like Mark Antony is going to take the helm, right? Like basically be in charge of the Roman fucking, country or whatever they were forming. But Mark Antony, our boy, the protagonist of this story, Mark Antony, he basically didn't expect for Julius Caesar to leave a little remnant, a slight little reference in his will to a small boy by the name of Octavius, who was basically a nephew of Caesar. He left a little bit, a small amount, to this kid named Octavius. And this fucking kid named Octavius straight up finessed the fucking world massively. He gained a lot of clout militarily. He somehow managed to form himself a fucking army. This is a lot of summarization, but trust me, just, it's a story, okay? And effectively, Octavius got to a certain level of fucking power, of influence, where he was able to fight directly Mark Antony, who is the guy that everyone was like thinking is probably going to be the ruler of this fucking land. And Octavius, it turned into a civil war, right? Now here's what the interesting part. Octavius, our boy, who would later become Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. This guy was the first fucking drama YouTuber. All right? This guy was the first propagandist, one of the smartest manipulators to exist in all of fucking humanity. He was effectively like almost a fucking an innovator of propaganda, because what happened is that Mark Antony, our boy, ended up going to fucking Egypt and dating, or like, basically having a romantic relationship with Cleopatra. All right, these are the historical figures we're invoking here. This is how fucking fundamental this like whole relationship is. Cleopatra existed in this time, okay, and she had a relationship with Julius Caesar. And so Mark Antony, when Julius Caesar died, he was like, all right, I don't fucking slide into those DMs, bro. And so he goes and has a relationship with Cleopatra. He obviously has his own army. He's basically building up. So for years, these guys were building up their armies, getting ready for a big fucking civil war to fight for who would be in charge of Rome. But Augustus, who was not a good military general, really at all, okay? He knew what he was good at. And what he was good at was propaganda. He was good at being a little snake, at manipulating public perspective. So what he did is he says, no, okay, this is not a civil war, not even close to that. What this is a war to protect Rome from that snake of a woman, Cleopatra, who has seduced the idiocy, the fucking idiot, Mark Antony. He basically started spreading fucking propaganda that Cleopatra seduced Mark Antony and that he was like under her spell. Yeah, that he was like under her spell, okay? So this is like basically what you guys are saying about fucking iDubbbz. Like Anisa is Cleopatra and and fucking Mark Antony is iDubbbz. And effectively what ended up happening is Mark Antony was relatively confident because he was actually a fucking extremely decorated and successful general. He actually knew how to operate a fucking war. The thing he didn't know how to do was PR, basically. All right? He was getting slammed by Augustus, who was spreading these rumors rapidly about how, oh yeah, Cleopatra's the real person in charge. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's the witch who has taken over and basically duped Mark Antony. And suddenly, this civil war, which was between two fucking guys trying to basically gain power of Rome, now it's positioned as, oh, Augustus, the hero of Rome, is going to save us from the foreign invaders, the Egyptians, the fucking corruption of Cleopatra. Bro, do you know what happened? Do you know how fucking effective this was? They go to have a big-ass massive battle. And no joke, Mark Antony's fucking army, a vast majority of them, ends up just switching sides. Like, straight up just joins the sides of Augustus. Like, actually abandons him. They fell for the fucking propaganda. They felt the tide shifting. Just off of that shit. Just off of this fucking, like, rumor that was spread. Maybe they also thought that that was going to be the winning side, but the propaganda contributed, bro, because there was a couple big fucking factions that just based on that alone were effectively, like, swayed. Of course, money's involved. Of course, there's a lot of resources and shit like that, promises made by Augustus, because he's smart. He's a smart manipulator. He knows that if he can build a narrative, a lot of things are built on narratives, bro. So much is built on narratives, okay? But you need to supplement the narrative with incentive, overt incentive. For the masses, a narrative is the most important, okay? For peasants or like low-level army men, a narrative is very effective in motivating people. But for like generals, leaders, people who, are more higher level, you need direct incentive. So obviously Augustus would tell them, like, yeah, we're gonna, give you a bunch of gold if we defeat him. You're gonna be in a high level. Basically, you're on the losing side, bro. What are you doing? If you're not joining me, then you're a loser, effectively. And you're gonna be working for that snake bitch, fucking Cleopatra. So basically, Mark Antony was fucked. Fucked. Because this battle that was supposed to be this big, decisive, massive battle, which it was, but it was a complete embarrassment because his own forces ended up fucking usurping him. And he had to go run back to fucking Egypt with Cleopatra, try his best to, like, rebuild some form of a fucking army, which failed because now more of his fucking army was going to Augustus's side. There's a famous case where basically there was a valiant soldier that Mark Antony, wanted to celebrate, to like set an example, like, yes, we treat our good soldiers well. He had Cleopatra gift this soldier like a big gold item. I forget exactly what it was. It might have been some kind of like symbolic gesture, but it was like actual gold. And so that guy that he gifted it to, he just immediately switched sides. He just went to Augustus' side, and he probably like pawned or sold the gold. So basically, Mark Antony was fucked. And by the time Augustus, I was saying Augustus, but Octavius at this time, Octavius's army comes in. He effectively was like, all right, I fucked this so bad. My assistant, my friend over here, who is a servant, could you please just kill me? Could you please just stab me? And the fucking assistant, or the servant, just killed himself. And so Mark Antony had to fucking actually kill himself. And he stabbed himself, but he couldn't fully kill himself. So he had to like basically like be in super giant amounts of pain and fucking crawl. And he ended up trying to get into Cleopatra's chambers, but she had already locked herself up in a fucking tomb or something like that. And so, or a crypt, sorry. And so he had to like really fucking annoyingly like climb, and like he had to get lifted by a pulley to fucking go and see Cleopatra, and he ends up dying with Cleopatra. But that sounds like a shitty death. Anyway, and then Octavius comes, takes over immediately. He's like, all right, I fucking did it, dude. I fucking did it. I conquered the fucking world, Rome. And so, yeah, within 3 or fucking 4 days, basically within a short span, Cleopatra initially didn't kill herself or anything, but then she died mysteriously of illness. It was probably just Augustus that killed her, or maybe she killed herself, whatever. Keep in mind that Augustus is like a genius fucking manipulator. Like, straight up, this guy actually conquered the existing world. Do you understand that? Like, beyond Napoleon, this guy literally fucking started the Roman Empire. And yeah, I know, it's not about just one guy. I was saying how Augustus, or Octavius, how he was actually a bad general. That's true. He was a very good manipulator, propagandist. He was very good at just basically, handling PR. And he had a friend or a colleague or whatever you would call it, who would basically handle the battles for him. He had a genius, battle strategist with him. And he just let him do most of the battle stuff. There's a lot of people, of course, that like built him up to this point. But the fact of the matter is that he finessed it, and bro, he maintained it too. So as soon as Octavius gains control, what does he think to himself? He's like, oh my God, I actually fucking did it. He's in Alexandria in Egypt, right? This beautiful historical place where Alexander the Great died, because he saw himself as like, adjacent to Alexander the Great, which he was effectively. And so he goes and visits Alexander the Great's, tomb, all this shit, all this interesting stuff. He like explores a little bit. Basically, the mood is probably just crazy good because he, again, won the massive battle that he had been preparing for. He was like 33 years old, and he had the fucking world in his hand, dog. But what does he do? What does this fucking guy do? He thinks to himself, okay, I'm in charge of a massive fucking nation basically now, right? A massive army, all this shit. A lot of responsibility here. How can I maintain this when Julius Caesar ended up getting stabbed in the fucking back after a few years of being in charge? This is the real interesting part to me, okay, of Augustus or Octavius. His name was Octavius, right? Basically what ends up happening, he goes to Rome, they have massive fucking parties, he immediately spreads the propaganda that, yes, Rome has been liberated from the fucking evil Cleopatra. Mark Antony is dead, the traitor Mark Antony, right? Again, it was just a civil war, but this guy was like, I fucking liberated you. But he thinks to himself, what did Julius Caesar do wrong? Okay. Number one, Julius Caesar was super, super fucking obvious about being in charge, okay? He literally named himself dictator for life. You don't get more overt than that, okay? The only step above that would be like labeling himself a king, right? You know, if you label yourself king, that's almost less obnoxious than dictator for life. But basically, now Octavius, he was like, okay, I got to be careful about how I title myself. So he, instead of naming himself dictator for life, he gave himself a bunch of names which all had very, interesting meanings, all had like double entendre meanings, like almost like there's like Augustus, which is basically like being like a pious individual. It basically means like you're almost like a faithful person. You know what I'm saying? At this time it's the Roman gods, obviously. But it also can kind of be alluded to divinity, right? So he's kind of saying he's faithful, he's like the servant of the gods, but he's also kind of divine himself, right? And there's a couple other names that he gave himself, among them emperor. Emperor was only one of the titles he had. And so not only that, he had the Senate come to him in public, right? He had the Senate approach him and ask him, please be the dictator, basically, of Rome, all right? Be the king of Rome. And publicly, he rejects. He's like, no, I don't want to be king. Okay, no, the people deserve somebody better than me, basically, is the implication, right? And through this denial, then the Senate basically offers him, okay, but can you please just have like this position, like this kind of like lesser position, but it's still, something for you to have, at least symbolically. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll take this position. Slowly, over time, he was accruing a bunch of these like lesser sounding positions within the fucking Roman Empire now that effectively made him literally a fucking dictator for life. You know what I'm saying? He had like fucking, basically, what's a university professor get? He had tenure, basically, as all of these functions within the Roman Senate and all these little areas that effectively made him effectively the king. You know what I mean? In every aspect, he was the king, except in name. Because at that time, you have to keep in mind that emperor, the title of emperor, it didn't carry the connotation of king necessarily, right? This was the first time almost that this was kind of used, right? So yes, Octavius, he changed. No. Octavian. We're talking about Octavian. Caesar died. Okay, Caesar died. My bad. Caesar got fucked. He got stabbed in the back because he was too obvious about his power. He was too obvious about being the center of the fucking universe. Number two thing, though, that Caesar did that Octavius, and now we're going to call him Augustus, because he renamed himself, right? To kind of, make himself look kind of holy, make himself look kind of humble, but also, to assert that he has all these like very Roman sounding fucking names. So he was debating on naming himself after Romulus, which is the initial first king of Rome, the founder of Rome. But he was like, actually, that's a bad idea. People will think that's like maybe too, overt. Anyway, but the number two thing that he did is he treated the Senate the public, all of these like people that were important, especially the people who were important, he treated them with actual fucking respect. He treated them like human beings. Whereas Caesar was kind of a dickhead, bro. If we're thinking about Caesar, Caesar was like Keemstar, bro. Of the drama community. Okay? Caesar was like overt, like, I want what I want when I want it. He didn't give a shit if he offended like the Senate or whatever. He wasn't really trying to respect the Senate. He just thought they were fucking tacky old men who didn't know what they were talking about or were just like, you know, boomers basically. And he told them that to their face, and he disrespected them openly. But yeah, so Caesar was openly disrespectful, and that obviously hurt him, right? Because it gave people reason where there might not have been to either actively be okay with killing him or to just not really care if he died, right? Because Caesar made people feel unsafe, or like he basically made people feel like their positions in the government. This is an important thing, by the way. If you study kings and all this, bro, it'd be so fucking stressful to be a king, straight up, especially if you're in an unstable time when you're not prospering. Holy fuck. Because what you need to understand is that when you're a king, you need to be very fucking considerate of who you trust, who you mistreat, who you treat well within like your Senate or within your like higher levels, right? Because even within the Roman Empire, there was like a CIA type of organization. You understand that? Not necessarily when Augustus was in power. Augustus didn't necessarily implement that, but later emperors would have almost like a secret service type of situation, where sometimes that secret service would decide who would be emperor, right? They would like kill people, keep shit on hush hush, you know what I'm saying? Kind of like this fucking CIA to an extent. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like a Kennedy moment. But yeah, but anyway, to get back to it. Augustus, aside from Caesar, he was like, okay, Caesar fucked up by pissing off all the old men. I'm going to be a good guy to them because I'm a good guy. But also because I don't want to get stabbed in the fucking ass. And so Augustus was like, all right, I'm going to treat everyone with respect. I'm going to, you know, make them feel secure, make them feel like we're good. And this fucking worked. The guy lived till like what, 77? Something like that? Yeah, so he lived from 63 BC to 63 BC to 14 AD. Wow. Bro, at that time, I think that is 77. At that time, to live to 77 is pretty redonkulous. Oh, sorry. He lived till he was 76. Like, that's crazy. Now, I'm not going to claim that his reign was perfect. Nobody's reign is really perfect. But it was it was about as good as you could get, bro. It was about as good as you could get for being like the first in line, right? Because he was very conscious about how things would be perceived by the public. He would always try to endear himself to the public, right? To have good rumors spread about him, all this shit. He did good things too. Keep that in mind for the people, right? Like, he held festive events. Oh, yo, Gokunar, I must say, though, you got a bit confused with titles. There never was a title of emperor, at least in the Roman Empire. No! Okay, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Gokunar is now going to transition to a history channel. What does this have to do with Creator Clash? I'm getting to the Creator Clash element. Fucking asshole. Danglous. Fuck you. Anyway, okay, maybe he didn't title himself emperor. I thought that one of his titles I thought was emperor, but I might be wrong. Wasn't the official title? Oh, Princep. Yes. Thank you, Bobby. You're right. The title that he gave himself was Princep. You're correct. I believe it must have later become emperor or something, but Princep basically means principal, the first, okay? It means basically to be what? Like one of the people? Something like a person or whatever. But it also means to be like the first. So it's almost like an he's almost like implying that he's like the first man of Rome or whatever, like the first person of the Roman Empire. Yeah. It was religious head. It means citizen or something. Yeah, okay. So it means, yeah, I think you're right. It means like citizen, basically. Princeps means citizen, but it also kind of means like the first citizen. You know what I mean? So like all these titles that he gave himself, it's like humble, but then on another angle, it's like, oh, like holy, right? And he wanted that. Very talented fucking guy. Like really, truly, when you think about it, bro, propaganda wise, like incredible how fucking ahead of his time he was. Absolutely insane. Yeah, the one thing that kind of surprised me is that this guy, he decided to have basically a hereditary monarchy, right? Like his ideally his like son or whatever. It'll be like a familial tie. The other thing that fucking is astounding to me, by the way, is that this guy didn't actually have a kid. This guy didn't have a son or a daughter, or maybe he had daughters. My bad. I think he had daughters. Maybe. Let me just check. Wait up. Did Augustus have kids? Julia. Okay. Okay. No. Wait. Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. The Roman Emperor Augustus' only child, Julia, who died in 14 AD. Wow, she died like around the same time as her father? The fuck? It's kind of surprising because when you think of like a guy who conquered fucking Rome, you would think he'd have like 10 wives and like 100 children. Kind of interesting when you think about it. But yeah, he only had one daughter, it seems like, and she died actually at a pretty healthy age. But anyway, he set up a hereditary system for people to inherit the fucking monarchy role, and he tried to kind of groom kids for the role. Like he had two kids in mind who he was trying to groom to become emperor, right? But both of them fucking died. Because this was a time when like kids, the life expectancy, bro, it was not crazy high. Despite even though he lived at like 77. Guy really got lucky with himself, but yeah, there was a lot of like weird little drama shit because this guy was like super neurotic about maintaining the public image of the Roman elite, right? So like one of the I think his daughter was actually okay. I don't know. I don't want to fucking call her out here, but apparently his daughter. This is according to me. This is super secondhand, but apparently his daughter was like a kind of a slut. Was the implication. Like she just basically cheated on her husband, and he was always Augustus was always pissed off. He was like, this is not good for our fucking image. Let me just see. So he's a bit of a, he's a bit imposing, I'm sure, as a father. Augustus' daughter, like his family couldn't live as they were, but they did have a lot of responsibility and whatever. But anyway, let's see. The philosophers of the time very much enjoyed slut shaming her. She was perhaps an olden times version of Paris Hilton or Kim Kardashian. That's fucking crazy, bro. It all comes back to YouTube drama, dog. It's basically just like YouTube drama, bro. Holy shit. I mean, of course, the scale is on another fucking level. Like when you're literally running the Roman Empire. But yeah, that's so crazy to me. Literally, fucking, you got Anisa's OnlyFans, and then you got Emperor Augustus, his daughter, sleeping around and ruining their image. Yeah, so basically, the guys that Augustus groomed to be the fucking leaders died. And so he's like, oh my god. And finally he found like some people who were kind of undesirable for the role. Like they just weren't that sociable. You know what I mean? Because a big important thing is he was trying to get someone who was just like him. Someone who was conscious of PR, someone who could, maintain the relationships, all this shit. But yeah, no, he ended up getting Tiberius, which we can talk about Tiberius another day. But the fucking most fascinating thing to me is just crazy, dude. It's like crazy because it's like you can't make this shit up. Actually, you can't. This actually sounds like something you would make up, to be honest. This sounds like a mythical person. It sounds like someone who didn't actually exist. But he did exist. Just so much of what we know, you can't really trust, right? Because it's like this guy, he knew how to fucking advertise himself, bro. But imagine this. So Augustus, after fucking literal decades of ruling pretty much successfully, people are fucking happy, you know. He's not the king of Rome. He's not like a god or whatever. But he's the god. He's the king of Rome, basically, right? After all this time, this motherfucker writes his own autobiography. Let me say that again. This is like 10 AD. Jesus died 10 years ago. I don't know the exact timeline, but yeah. And this guy just writes an autobiography of himself. And basically sucks his own cock. But in like a smart way, right? In a way where it's like he's being humble, but then he's like still saying like he's accomplished so much, you know what I'm saying? Like he's like, you know, he's basically like in like one passage he'll just be kind of talking like really humanly about himself, about how he's, you know, not actually anything like, you know, he's just like a normal person like the rest of us. But man, look at all this shit I did. It's crazy. And the title of his fucking autobiography, let me look up the actual, like, I believe it was Latin title. I'm not really sure though. Okay, so he wrote an autobiography that basically translates to some stuff I did. You know what I mean? Like it literally is just him being like, oh, this is some shit that I did in my life, I guess. It's like it's supposed to be kind of, you know, humble. The whole thing is literally a humble brag, dog. Not that I read it, but you know, from everything I've learned about this guy, I totally believe it. It's funny to think because it's like, as a leader, technically he was actually very good. So it's not necessarily that he's just Machiavellian and evil and whatever the fuck, but he was totally Machiavellian and not obvious that he's like an amazing fucking like moral fucking superior or whatever. But yeah, no, super fascinating stuff. Imagine that, bro. What a fucking finesse. The biggest finesser in history, straight up. Wild. After all that shit, you literally fucking from very little, from being a nephew of Julius Caesar, who's like not very well known, somehow you managed to scrape up a fucking army and destroy Mark Antony and Cleopatra, go back home and actually maintain being effectively the king of Rome for like fucking, no joke, 40 years, give or take. Wild. Guys, Goka is just telling us what some guy told him. Don't expect any of it to be true. Auto infanticide. I mean, it's a university professor that told me this, so you know, if you're not gonna take my secondhand info from a university professor, so be it. Whatever. But yeah, it's just interesting shit. Before this devolves into an argument of semantics and interpretation, how does this relate to Crater Clash, the real issue? Thank you, Sergio Reyes. Everything I told you is true. Anybody saying otherwise is lying. Anyway, if you think it's not true, you'll have to get the primary source. You'll have to get Augustus himself to fucking counter it. So yeah, this is the conclusion in our Roman Empire series. Next stream we'll be talking about Tiberius, the second emperor of Rome, also known as the first ever Epstein, the first guy to create an Epstein's Island for the elite to fuck. Yeah. Anyway. So how does this relate to Crater Clash, right? Great question. Very important. Well, you see, another thing that Augustus did that Julius Caesar did not do was he split up Rome a little bit. Like he gave himself power over a specific district of Rome. And it just so happened that district of Rome held the vast majority of the army, right? So basically he kept the army on his side. He did not let the army get corrupted. iDubbbz, on the other hand, he betrayed his own army. Over the years, he had cultivated and collected an army of fucking viewers who were eager for drama and ready to shit on somebody. iDubbbz starved the army, unlike Augustus. Augustus, when he won his war against Mark Antony, he promptly paid the fucking fighters. He actually, you know, gave the fucking concessions that he said he was going to give. He actually made sure that everyone was taken care of so that there wouldn't be a counter-revolution, right? iDubbbz, he didn't pay us, bro. He didn't pay the viewers. You know what I mean? He starved us for years of drama content, and then he turned around and he was like, yeah, all that content you guys liked? No. That was just me being immature. That was like kind of cringy, actually. Like, ew. Like, even the fans that I cultivated, gross, bro. He looked his army in the face and he said, yeah, no. Bleh. Gross, dude. He didn't compensate you. So, he also didn't treat the Senate. He didn't treat the Senate with the utmost courtesy, bro. You know? Sam Hyde, he fucking banned Sam Hyde from Creator Clash. He banned Froggy Fresh from Creator Clash. Oh my goodness. He fucking executed one of his generals, Froggy Fresh, who was going to go to battle. You don't have a fucking leader who's executing generals who are ready to fight for you. No, that's how you start a mutiny. So, also, he was dating Cleopatra, so, you know, the game was rigged from the start, really. Okay, there you go. I connected it. Guys, it's a circle back from Rome to iDubbbz. That's what I'm saying, bro. That's what I'm saying. But you know what's beautiful about this analogy is that this is not the fall of Rome. This is not the crumbling of Rome. This is how Rome was birthed. We're on a new horizon, baby. Land is fucking ripe and opportune for us to rebuild, you know, and to cultivate. So, everybody, join the Gokunaru Discord right the fuck now after that long-winded rant if you're not in the Discord.